Hi, welcome to week 2 of Black History Month with S.A.C in Canada for 2022. I'm your host, Shanay Egwuenu, and this week's panel, week 2, is Women and R&B in Canada. When the subject of Black history arises every year in the diaspora, America, Canada, the UK, we see stories and facts reminding us of the contributions that Black people and our music has made to the modern world. We shouldn't ever forget about our past, of course. And the topic of this panel is an ode to where Black music started, how far it got us, and where we're headed for the future. Who are your musical influences? What was the industry like? Well, when you started your career? And then also, we're gonna look at songwriting, like how it influenced you. I wanna bring up something too that's very unique to Canada specifically, where pop R&B in Canada, I'll say in the last 5 years, is on fire across the country and around the world. Black female singers aren't only singing background vocals anymore. Black women write their own material and they make no apologies in the style of how they sing, the way they write. And of course, being an R&B singer, being in a public eye, we do often say that looks are important, but I want us to talk about like both sides, the promo, the photography, the things that you're doing, presenting yourself, and also the content that you're putting out in your music. So what more does a vocalist or songwriter have to do in order to be a R&B singer in Canada? Let's talk. Indigenous peoples of Takaranto, the land we are standing on today, is a traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Innu and Métis people. I also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. Next year, Songwriters Association Canada will be celebrating 40 years. We are nurturing, developing, and protecting the creative, business, and legal interests of music creators in Canada and the world. 3 of the most important tenets representing what S.A.C's work is education, advocacy, and community. We'll be focusing on these throughout this year's panels, and we ensure that these messages are delivered today. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we have 2 very special guests. It's Nicole Chambers, singer, songwriter, and we also have singer, songwriter, Leila Day. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. So I'm a huge fan of both of you. So I can definitely tell everyone everything that I know about you both, but I'd like you to introduce yourself to everyone watching today. I'm going to start with Nicole. Introduce yourself, Nicole.
Hey, thank you for having me. So my name is Nicole Chambers, singer-songwriter based out of Brampton. I've just been doing this for a hot minute now, but music is my passion. R&B is my soul, and yeah, songwriting is just like my favorite thing to do. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. And yourself, Leila.
Okay, so I'm Leila Day, singer-songwriter from Toronto. I've been doing this for what feels like ages, but I am very happy to be here to talk on this panel. I love to sing. I didn't always love songwriting, but I've learned to love songwriting as well. But yeah, I think that's mainly who I am.
Welcome both. Before we begin the actual discussion, I just want to congratulate both of you on your achievements. I'm always looking and watching to see what you've done. So congratulations, Leila, on your album Detour. It's really, really nice. And I saw your Spotify Young and Dundas down in Toronto billboard. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. I know her. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And Nicole, the first time I watched you, I heard you at the Hustle Academy at the Drake Underground 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's where we met. And since then, I saw Voice of a Virgo, your album release. Congratulations on that. It's a gorgeous album.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I want everyone watching today, if you are online, you're perusing, you're looking for some new music, check them out both. It's incredible. All right, so R&B, women in R&B in Canada. What is, when you're looking at maybe what you expected, how do I pose this? When you were looking at where you were when you started your first points of venture or creativity, activity into the industry, how did it start for either one of you? We'll start with Leila.
Sure. So my first introduction kind of to the industry was actually doing an open mic. So when I was younger, probably not old enough to be in a club, I was in this club called the Lion's Den. It was in Scarborough. And they had an open night, and everyone was always like, oh, you should definitely just like go and like see if you'll just win. And I went. The first time I went, I won. And then the second time I went, I just kept going back to back to back. And everyone was like, oh my God, this little girl just keeps winning. But in the midst of that, I was introduced to an incredible singer, Kim Davis. She was also on that stage doing some stuff. And I was like, oh my God, like I love what she's doing. Like, she's so good. I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. I was so excited to have met her so early on in what I felt like was my beginning of my career as an artist. And, you know, from there, a lot of things have transpired, but that was kind of my introduction. One of the first artists I've ever seen, at least from Toronto, who was doing something similar to what I did, which was like R&B, was Kim Davis, and that was at an open mic called the Lion's Den.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. Nicole?
Yeah, so for me, I, went to college and studied jazz for 4 years. So then from there, I really started working on my craft, like more songwriting and like performances, because I didn't really care to perform as much. Even now, sometimes I'm still going through the motions, going through the waves of it all. But yeah, just like meeting some of my best friends and even some of the creatives that I work with today, like even Trust, it was so nice to have that connect that we have, because we've known each other since we were like 7 or 8. So for us to now still be working on music together, and him helping me out with my project meant so much to me, because I really felt like I finally found my sound. And I think definitely from the project, I really made a name for myself, and I've built connections from there. So yeah. Oh, I can hear you. You're muted.
Edit that out. For everyone who doesn't recognize who Trust is one of our most recent S.A.C members, and he's featured on our Black History Month reel online. You can check out his bio, but he's worked with quite a few R&B artists in Canada. So it's nice that you mentioned him, because we just mentioned him a few days ago.
Love that.
Wonderful. Okay. And so, what does it take to be an R&B singer in Canada?
I don't know. I'm still figuring that out. No.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Woo! Today's gonna
Yes,
be
we
an
are.
interesting topic. Yeah. No, I still think I'm still discovering it. I think it's important to, not have an ego though and just act like you know nothing ever. Because man, I'm still learning every day. I'm learning something new about myself. But I definitely think it takes a bit of discipline. You know what I mean? Like you have to stay committed to what you're doing because it's so easy, especially as a Black woman, to be swayed. Like, oh, do I fit the part? Oh, am I enough today? Like, oh, well, am I gonna get this opportunity tomorrow? Right? So you have to just stay true to who you are, what you're doing, and why you're doing it. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like similarly, that's a loaded question. That's a loaded question for me. Simply because I think it takes a lot. I do. I think it takes a lot to be, a Black female creative in Canada. Um, like Nicole said, it takes a lot of grit. It's not for the meek. It's not for the weak. It's for people who are genuinely passionate about this because I feel like in Canada we don't necessarily have an infrastructure that supports um, Black women in R&B. And so we're kind of building that. We're paving. There are obviously pioneers of this R&B in Toronto and whatnot, and I'll always respect them. But I mean, it feels like it's always kind of been this constant uh, push between like, well, where do we fit in? Where are we respected? Who? Why are we kind of sometimes pitted against each other? Why is there a mentality of like there can only be one R&B singer that everyone loves right now? So I mean, for me, that question is very loaded. I think overall, yes, I think you should be humble and always try to be a student in certain environments. But also, I would also really love to see Black women in R&B especially start getting on a little bit of a humble brag because we're really good out here, and I think a lot of times we're overlooked, and I think that hopefully, with a lot of new things that are happening, that we end up just having a place in Toronto R&B and Canada R&B, and yeah, just finding a way because I feel like it's always just been a little bit difficult, at least in my experience.
Yeah, and I've only known Layla, for a couple of years and stuff because of trust and like that whole connection there. But I can attest and say, yeah, Layla has been working like the hardest. And many people know when I talk about her, I say that I'm like, and Layla's still out here.
Girl,
True.
you already know I love you. I love you.
You
You
just
already
give me
know.
your
I
flowers
appreciate it.
you deserve. Yeah. So it's just facts. I agree with everything you just said. Oh, you're muted again. Oh
Yep.
no.
Something I
There
can
you go.
say I really appreciate um, when I've reached out to quite a few vocalists, R&B vocalists. I love that in Canada we can at least say everyone knows each other,
Mhm.
and it really doesn't matter even the age or even where the geographic area in Canada. Everyone knows each other to the point where they've either worked together or they were coming up around the same time, so they kind of know what each other's doing. It's really nice. It's really, really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now let's get into like content. So what exactly are both of you writing about in your music? And this is me asking this question not from my perspective, because I know this is for anyone who wants to like listen to you and what would they expect in terms of like how you write, what you're singing about.
I can go first.
Yeah.
So at least, okay, cool. And Nicole, jump in at any time because I
Yeah.
can talk a lot.
No,
But
I'm here for it. Yeah.
okay, yeah, I mean, I always say like for me, I make honest music, so that is just whatever it is I am experiencing. Um, I've recently gotten a lot of feedback around like the type of music that I make, and some of my friends like laugh at me and they call me like, you're in your like Mary J. Blige phase where like you're only talking about, you know, like breakups or like hurt or whatnot. And like I had to reflect on that because I was like, you know what, like I don't actually think that. But then I listened to all of the songs that I actually released and I was like, okay, maybe I'm in my like Mary J. Blige phase, whatever. But but it's just for me, it's just kind of like a reflection um of where I'm at or where I've been. And I don't know if this is the same thing for Nicole, but I feel like sometimes for me, like when I'm going through something, it's kind of the easiest, not just the easiest, but it's a way of like me to release whatever emotions that I'm feeling. And sometimes that comes out in the form of like heartbreak, that comes out in the form of, you know, um, grief, that comes out in the form of hurt, that also comes out in the form of love. I'm really working on making that more like an emphasis on the love part. But also, yeah, that just comes out in the form of whatever it is that I'm experiencing. Or I want to say to myself, you know, one of the songs that I have on Beach was called Blessed. And like, it was a freestyle. And I was like, listen, I know that there's a lot of things happening right now in the world, in your life specifically, but taking a step back and really looking at your life, can you really say like you're blessed? And I was like, actually, I am. And it's become sort of like a mantra for me where I'm like, you know what, when I'm feeling down, I need to come out of this like really low vibration. And I will put that on because it speaks to me, even though it's a song that I made, but it also speaks to me and like where I need what I feel like I needed to hear, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. The whole time you were talking, I was like, it's therapeutic for her. That's really what it is. I feel like some people sometimes they don't get that. You know what I mean? It's like it's not even about sometimes it's not even about me when I'm writing the songs. It could be about my girlfriends. It could be about maybe another girl across the way that relates to what I relate to because, you know, especially when I released Voice of Virgo, man, so many women were sliding in my DMs from all over, and they were like, "Girl, thank you so much. Just went through a horrible breakup. Blah 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 blah. Like it's like you wrote this song about me." And I was like, "I don't even know you, but like I totally like I get that, you know." So I have to remind myself even too, like when I think, "Oh, am I about to be in my my Mary Blige phase?" I'm like, honestly, whatever, because it's not about me. Like the music just needs to get where it needs to get to. It needs to go where it needs to go because you never know who else you could be helping and healing through your music,
Yeah.
right? And when you mentioned your song "Bless," I was thinking, I was hearing, oh my God, what's I just had it, Jill Scott's song "Blessed." So I was like, there you go, right? She did that, and she's, always writing about love or blessings or just like hurt, right? So I agree. Yeah.
Um, let's talk about songwriting here. Has any of you attended any of the any songwriting camps in the last few years of your building your careers?
So personally, I haven't really attended any songwriting camps. I was a part of a program called CMI, and we did songwriting in that program, which was amazing.
Mhm.
And then I started looking into songwriting camps and just trying to be a part of them. I was never, um, I guess, called on to be a part of any kind of songwriting camp. And so, with that being said, I just started to do my own songwriting camps. And I was, I would take my cousin Phoenix and Trust, and we'd be like, all right, cool. Here we are. We're headed to Montreal or we're headed to Ottawa, and we're just going to take however many days and work on some music from a really honest place that without the distraction of some of us who are working 9 to 5s, 5 to 9s, whatnot. Some of us who are just dealing with life stressors. It was just a space that I wanted to hold for some of the closest people to me, but also just creatives and like share that cohesive energy and just try to create. And that's been extremely beautiful. I wish I could do it on a broader scale, and I'm hoping that I can hopefully end up doing it on a broader scale because we've made some really amazing songs in that time.
Yeah.
Okay, nice, nice. And since you mentioned that, I just want to shout out to Canada's Music Incubator because
Yes.
they're very supportive of
Art.
Canadian art music creators, but even in the business side, they're also very supportive in activating its participants and then sort of pushing you forward into the next stage of your whatever you're trying to do. So hi,
Yeah.
CMI.
Shout outs to CMI. I just want to say, as somebody who actually went through that program, it
Yeah.
really changed my life as a entrepreneur in music, and like seeing myself as an actual business in music, and not allowing myself to just kind of fall by the wayside and be like, this is a hobby, but to actually really understand music business. So yeah, shout outs to CMI.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like I want to be transparent here. I also was in a program with CMI 3 years ago, and it was for women in music, in the music business. And they're what they were doing was kind of like looking at women who have all the components there to get ready to build a business, but they needed more contacts in terms of like accounting and creative direction and counseling, and then looking at what assets are available. So if you had your own website already, or you'd already been doing freelance work, if you're a public relations person, let's say, for example, they want to look at what you've done and then sort of give you tips and pointers on how to move in that direction. So they're very helpful. And I encourage anyone who is looking at where to start to head over to their website and have a look, because S.A.C does get a lot of inbox questions, like where do I go, who do I talk to, I don't know how to start, but I just have my music. So it's great that you mentioned that, Leila.
Yeah.
And yourself, Nicole,
Um,
have you attended any songwriting camps?
no, I haven't attended any songwriting camps. Just been to like a lot of workshops and programs and stuff like that for music in general.
Mhm.
During the pandemic when we kind of had more time to do that stuff. Um, but yeah, I'm with Layla. I've just had like little intimate sessions actually with Trust. That was probably the most recent one I had for like his project. But yeah, I'm just trying my best. Yep.
Are there any workshops that you really liked that were very
um,
helpful?
I'm trying to think about them right now because there's a lot. I did like the RBC X Music workshop with
Yes.
that was really cool because we had a bunch of different people come in and speak and stuff when we had to like move it to Zoom. And I just met some more creatives through that as well. So that one was probably one of my favorites. And I know that SoCan did one recently. It was like SoCan X TuneCore or something. That
Yes.
one was a lot mentally. Just there's just so many different music platforms to protect your work. And
Yes.
at one point, all of us at the end were like, that's great, but why didn't anyone think, okay, let's put all of this under just one? Because there's so many, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was a lot for me. And then I had to tune out for a little bit because I was like, I'm not going to want to do this anymore. There's too much paperwork involved.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not
It's a
going to want to
lot.
do this anymore. Like, no. So, but it was
I'm
very,
glad you
very informational. So, yeah.
no, I'm glad you mentioned that. The reason why I'm asking this is we we really want we're advocates for music creators. We want everyone, regardless of genre, regardless of what stage you are in your career, to know that yes, it's Canada. Canada's quite big. There's a lot of organizations. There's some people who know what they're doing and know people. There's some people who don't know anyone. But if they get those tips and tricks from both of you, even someone they can identify with and see and recognize, it makes a world of difference to point them in the right direction with resources. And I'm just so excited that you both brought up like specific organizations for them to look at. And hopefully when they see, the kudos that you gave these organizations, they'll look into it. So that's wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important. It's so important because I think for a long time as an artist, like I didn't even know about any of these third party organizations or places where I could be collecting royalties from. And it wasn't until I went to CMI that I actually knew that I could. It wasn't just SoCan. I think SoCan is amazing, but everybody as an artist knows that you go to SoCan and you're like, all right, cool, and then you wait for your your cents to come in. And you're like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Here we are. We've got like an accumulation of like $25. We're doing great. But then, you know, there's other things, like for example, like sound exchange, that I had no clue about for so many years. For so many years that probably in the grand scheme of things, for me personally, I've made more money as an artist from sound exchange than I have from SoCan. And it isn't to like compare anything, but it's like it's that lack of knowledge. It's that lack of knowledge that I think is not necessarily being shared or brought to the forefront, because had I not had the opportunity to be in CMI, I don't know if I would have really known that information. And I think the panels and all of the things that Nicole had discussed, like I think they're great. But also similarly, I think, you know, some of these organizations need to do the work of like getting out there and speaking to these artists, because not everyone gets the opportunity to do RBCX or, you know, CMI or any of those things. And I think this kind of goes back to what I find in Canada's infrastructure that's a little bit hard, is like this access to knowledge, this access to so much information that I feel like is kind of on the hush hush, especially for artists of color. You know, there's other genres that they've got it down pat. I've co-written with a lot of other genres. I've, you know, seen a lot of other genres that there's people who like we have not heard of. They're not famous by any real social aspect, but they know how to make a dollar in music. And that's because the information that they were provided has really helped them really kind of hone in on their loyalties and hone in on, you know, the things that they're entitled to as an artist. So, I mean, this is going on a little bit on a tangent because I'm very passionate about this, but I feel like some of the organizations do need to do the work of just like getting out there and educating the artists that are there and honestly are a part of a community that really helps serve you. It's kind of like a rotating cycle.
Well, honestly, this point of this discussion right here is why we reached out to you, because the more we have artists who are learning and moving forward and gaining access, and the more they're visible with organizations they might not have known or collaborated with, it really sheds light on areas that now become like a new point of programming. You'll even I'm looking at things like, you know, membership. S.A.C has a membership with plenty of benefits, but not everyone knows because they don't see someone like them. And this is the purpose of social media and putting, you know, the kind of musical genres out there when we're collaborating with artists like yourselves, and we put it in the forefront and say, look, there's someone here like you, listen to what they have to say because there's programs available.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Because I feel like sometimes too, just to chime and add one more thing, I feel like sometimes we forget, like, we are making these companies money, not the other way around. You know what I mean? Like without our sound, without our music, without us showing up, they don't get paid. It's that simple.
Well, I mean, this is now the topic where I think in every panel, the Spotify topic comes up, or any streaming platform. You know, artists, the hot Black music is hot. Like it's been hot for many generations. It doesn't matter if it's blues or jazz or R&B or hip hop. And so yes, it makes money. It really does. And you want a lot of creatives, especially when they're starting brand new, to know their power in terms of, you know, how good their music is or how talented they are, and then how to now kind of narrow it in and make sure that they have what they need to keep going and they can have a lengthy career. Yeah. So now I want to look at image for a moment here. Because when you're looking at artists of any kind with a very large platform, there's specific things that work in the industry, whether it's media or entertainment. And there's specific things that don't go or don't fly or people are not attracted to, let's say. What are some things that you encounter as a Black female music creator, vocalist, when now you're looking at things like public presentation, performance, when you're doing photo shoots, let's say, for example? I want you to talk about it in a way where young female artists coming up can like kind of push aside the surface things about being an R&B artist and look more at their craft. But talk about it nonetheless. It's something I think we should discuss.
Leila, you want to take this one again?
What do you want, Nicole? You want me to go first?
It's up to you.
Okay. Again, this is a loaded question for me as well.
I was like, okay.
I know. I don't know.
It is the topic.
I know. I could talk for days on image in many different ways in many different sectors. But I will say this. I think in R&B and anyone trying to be, I guess, more in the popular sector, image is very important. As much as we would like to not believe that, it is. And I think more and more, as I grow in my artistry and I start looking at other artists who portray a different image, I love seeing the difference. I actually don't care for like the same image all of the time. And when I say the same image, like it's not even just, Black women in R&B, but R&B in general. Sometimes people associate R&B and very sexualized. And that's not necessarily the case. Or R&B, even actually when I was younger, I used to associate, because I was a singer, that I had to perform in heels. That's something that like,
Yeah.
I don't know. And here I am on stage and my feet are killing me and I look so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I just associated those two things, like, well, you're singing, you're female, you identify as female, like you're, this is what you should be doing. And I will say this for any artist who is out there, I guess, as a young person or even as a mature person, like it's really just about finding who you are and being that person, because it will fly anyways. And in this day and age where I think a lot of authenticity is what people are really gravitating towards, in an era of a lot of fake, a lot of smoke and mirrors, a lot of whatever, like anybody can, and this is me really saying this, like anybody can really put on a really amazing face beat, like makeup or whatever, and look great. But if you feel uncomfortable underneath, or you're not, it's not a reflection of your artistry, then it will always kind of fall flat. And so I will say, like for myself, I've grown from wearing heels. Now, most of the time people know me, you will probably not catch me in heels unless there's a place where I can sit down. It's like an award show or something. I'm a sneakers girl. I've always been a sneakers girl. And in owning that, I found a particular kind of what I consider sexiness in wearing sneakers. And that's the most important thing for me. I'm not out here trying to, be someone I'm not, or, present something that is going to make my music sell more. It's just, I just needed to figure out, like, who am I? What do I like? And how do I make this work for me? And a really important piece of that is, like, I saw other people in the industry who didn't necessarily look like, the same old person who was like in this long gown, in heels, in whatever. I saw different artists. I mean, one of my favorite people is like Tiana Taylor. She has a very like masculine energy to her, but still very sexy. I love that about her. Other people just a different, even her, her, the artist, like,
Her.
Yeah, like she's just not pushing overtly sexy. She's giving you, this is me. I'm gonna wear these shades for as long as I can. I'm gonna put on these glasses for as long as I can. I'm just gonna do what feels comfortable for me. And that's powerful. I think that's really powerful, seeing those types of people in the industry that I'm like, okay, this is possible for me. Especially in a space where image is so important. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to try to change your image, or like try to make your image be something else. It's really important that you just know yourself and know what you stand for, what you're comfortable with, what you are going to allow, and what is your bottom line, where it's like, no, I will not show up in this way. And I want to highlight, there's no like right or wrong way, you know, not saying that any artist who's hypersexual, it's not necessarily wrong. It just has to be authentic. I think that's the most important thing.
Right, I agree with that. I think that was what I was learning through the course of creating my album as well. I was like, okay, am I going to show up with my natural hair? That was a big thing for me, you know, because there's so many, you know, different women doing different hairstyles now, right? So I was like, okay, am I gonna own my curls? Am I gonna rock them? Like, is this, because you know, Nicole, like if you do this, this is gonna be the album artwork for like forever. You can't really change it. But I did, and I owned it, and I love looking back at it, and I'm like, I'm so glad I went with my natural hair. I love my curls. Like the journey that we've had together, and we are still going through with this crazy weather is just wow. But I love it, and I love looking back at it, and I love that I've also explored with different hairstyles, you know, because for a long time I wasn't comfortable doing anything except natural hair because of I just didn't like the way it felt, and I kind of felt like I wasn't being myself. But I think since I owned my natural now, I'm like, okay, but I know who I am. Okay, but I'm like, I'm set in stone on like who I am and what I want. Um, and even outfits as well, same. Like I hated wearing heels. I hated it. So I'm a comfort girl now. At this point, like if you see me wearing heels, I count my inches. Okay, they are not past 3. They are not past 3, because after 3, absolutely not. I'm not. Where am I going? Nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. Like all of my booties or all of my heels are 3 inches. Like I'm already short. I like being close to the ground. Like you know. So that was a big thing for me too. So I definitely identified with what Leila was saying, because that was something I had to get over too. Like, okay, so you're a shorter girl, whatever. Put on 3 inches if you want. You can walk around in 3. Hopefully you won't trip in 3, but there has been a time. Luckily it wasn't caught on tape, which is fine. But you know, so that's just what it is for me. And even working on the new stuff that I'm working on, I'm still exploring with different outfits and a look, because I agree. I don't think you have to be set in stone in one look. Like, okay, if I'm gonna be sexy today, oh well, I gotta be sexy for the rest of it until the rollout's done. No, if you want to wear hoodies and jeans after that, great. I love that for you. So you're really, I think, you know, I can't really speak for Leila because I won't, but I think like for me personally, you're just gonna get what you're just gonna get this 2022. I'm learning how to set boundaries and specific things.
Period.
So right, so you're just gonna get what you're gonna get. One day I might be natural, one day I just might not. And if you have a problem with that, that's okay. You don't have to, you know, you don't have to pay attention to what I'm doing. It's fine.
I
And I
think
mean,
that's,
oh, sorry.
oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, and after all, it is your voice. It's your voice.
Right. Yeah.
It's the beauty of the music. It's the lyrics, the emotions.
Yeah.
It's more than just the look. That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to get from this
But
panel.
I also think sometimes people think like if you're an artist or you're creative, like it's not one dimensional. You know what I'm saying? Like at least not for me. I'm infamous for changing my hair. People know this. Like I am infamous. I look
Love it.
different every time my hair changes. I've had managers, I've had people be like, listen, we need to keep one hairstyle for like a little bit
Right?
of time.
Oh,
I've had it. I've
Really?
had it.
Really?
Absolutely. That's
Oh,
that's a
wow.
real thing.
trust
That's a real
me.
thing.
They're coming for us, man. They're
And,
coming for us.
and though I understand some aspects of it for branding, and like, you know, it's difficult if you go out into this, like I have my hair like this, and then I go out to a show and I look completely different. And they're like, who the hell is that? It might not work in my favor. However, I mean, as an artist and as a creative, I'm still an artist and I'm still a creative. And how I express my art, whether that's through my hair, whether that's through the way that I dress, whether that is vocally, whatever, it's going to come out because I'm a creative.
Right.
And I think sometimes we think artists are very one-dimensional, where it's like, okay, well, we just sing and we don't want to express any other way. And I think that's a very one-dimensional way to think.
Or they try to make you one dimensional. And that's
Yeah.
not what I'm not here for this year. 2022, I'm like, no.
Not having it, Nicole.
I'm just like, these boundaries are about to be set, locked, and loaded. Like, talk
Right.
to me nice or don't address me at all. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to see Leila, her voice is always going to sound the same unless she just like leveled up and you're just getting some new runs you never got before. Like, you're welcome. But at the same time, everything is still the same. You know what I mean? What does
Right.
it matter? I agree. It comes back to the voice. So yeah, totally agree.
So I want to ask you, we are in Black History Month. This panel is one of 4 that's commemorating a time in history where we just look back at our favorites, artists who revolutionized the sound, the look, the feel of Black culture. I want to find out from both of you, whose music, whose voice, whose style influenced your songwriting?
There's like right now or just like in general?
Let me say in general, and then we'll go into what are you listening to right now?
Okay, sure. Again, I'm gonna have to bring it back to like my personal favorites. I feel like everyone knows at this point because I'm constantly repeating it. But I really, 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 really love Erica Badu, Jill Scott, Lauryn Hill, obviously, Indiana Ari. Like, come on, those women, they did it and they did it for us, and I'm so thankful. And again, all of their styles were unique, but the voice was always there. Even Marvin Gaye, like I've loved listening down to his stripped down version of just like
Uh,
I Want You and just the vocals because I didn't know that was a thing until I got the deluxe on Spotify or whatever. And it's like flawless. Just
yeah,
flawless.
like his voice
Yeah.
is flawless with no
Just
instrumentation.
it's
Yeah.
actually frightening. It's frightening. Like, wow, you're a gift. D'Angelo as well. And I'm trying to think of someone else right now that I can't. Oh, and then if I were to go way, way back, I really, really love Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday because they had stank and they were not afraid
Yeah.
to show it or talk about it. They let you know. And that's what I'm saying. I like it's just carried. You know what I mean? Like it's in our DNA. This
Yeah.
is our home. So I'm not gonna have nobody tell me how I'm gonna look or dress or feel or whatever, because they didn't, right?
And I want to add anyone who goes over to any platform to purchase her album or listen to her music, Nicole, she really does channel like Billie Holiday,
Yes.
Sarah Vaughan. Like I
Yes.
can feel it. It's incredible how in the generations you can still hear a specific flavor, and it's strong in your music. It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Going to school for jazz was probably the best thing I ever did for my songwriting and for my voice because I think after that it was so different because I didn't know about these women. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know about them enough. And I was like, oh, well, this is why we all sound, oh, like this is where this came from, you know? They sang from like, unfortunately, a place of hurt, but also a place of love and, just heartache. But it's like, I'm so thankful that they did what they had to do for us so we could be where we are because without them, like I wouldn't have the sound I have.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. And you, Leila?
Oof. I mean, Nicole has said a lot of the people that I think
Sorry.
I also, that's okay. That's okay. It just shows. I will say, I think everybody knows that I completely admire Lauryn Hill. I think everything that she's done, like since Miseducation, even the Fugees before that, is so revolutionary in that time. From her look to, this female artist who is rapping and singing and does both of them extremely amazing. And then just the songwriting level, the collaboration, and just like the things that she was saying and how the production all came together for Miseducation. I think everyone knows that I'm like I fangirl over Lauryn Hill. She's so influential for me, especially when I was younger. And just being like, I love that contrast between like the grit and also just the, you know, that flowy kind of melodic, very real, but still just very like beautiful sound. And that was something that I think stuck with me for a long time when I was younger, and still till now. But just the revolution of just how she's actually developed as an artist, I think was amazing and beautiful for me to see growing up. Now I think also a lot of people know that I also extremely, I love Jasmine Sullivan. Like, I'm not a now fan. I'm like the back in the day, very first song Jasmine ever came out with fan, you know, and the songs that some people don't even know. And not just because of her like vocal capabilities, but also just like she embodies a particular emotion when she sings that is really not easily replicated by anyone. And again, I think she's revolutionary also because it wasn't easy coming out as, you know, somebody who wasn't necessarily extremely skinny. And just the pushback that she got in her artistry and her musicianship, and coming right around full circle to now where people are just like, oh my gosh, like Jasmine is in my top 5. And I was like, she's been in my top 5, you know? You all didn't, you guys were asleep.
Like, but the time she was singing with Missy Elliott and she was talking about Stanley in that previous album, I was
yes, like she's been doing revolutionary things. And I'm not even talking about even when as an adult. Like, we've seen video footage of her at 13 or 15 killing it, you know? That for me is very revolutionary. And amongst a lot of the other artists that Nicole has also said, but I love, like, obviously Anita Baker, Shanay.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I love Anita. I just love a feeling. It really comes down to a feeling for me. I like when artists have that revolutionary aspect to them, but also that feeling is so unmatched. I think because I also kind of grew up in gospel. And I think, you know, people might hate me, but to me, the two genres that like have a feeling that's just undeniable is gospel for me. And also like R&B and soul and blues. But like, to me, those two things like are just so heavy in the emotion. And that's what that really draws me in. So I would say there's a lot of influence from a lot of different places, a lot of different artists. I love a lot of different people's stories. But to me, those two artists, I think like Lauryn Hill and Jasmine have been really revolutionary for me.
I want to add too, like Jasmine Sullivan, what was mind-blowing about her is that she brought, I'll call it a mature gospel sound to a mainstream vocalist platform. And these are sounds that you definitely hear in church. Like if you were Pentecostal. And I remember hearing her years ago, because I like her as well. She brought church to TV or church to mainstream, but she wasn't singing about church, but she brought the church sound. And I think that is the how do I say it? The dart in the dartboard, like in the middle, like
that's the bullseye.
I think that's what we have come to know. If R&B is good, is if you can grasp that church emotion or church feel. So yeah. Talking about paving the way, I just want to bring up Jully Black, because I think that Jully Black, I looked back because as a youngin, I used to go to her shows all the time when I was much younger. And I've seen and last year and look at her first performance at the Junos. It was like a group performance. It was Jully Black, Cardinal Official, Chalklair, Snow, Mishi Me, that whole set of we don't call it urban anymore, so hip hop R&B performance on stage. And they told her that this was 21 years ago. And she was so shocked because she knew it was her. She remembered doing the performance. But when you look at your own self and you're like, wow, this is me 20 years ago. She's been in the public eye with us for 20 plus years, revolutionizing R&B. That's a like a legendary, monumental moment. I was shocked myself because that's how much time has passed. And where she is today, she just was inducted into the Canadian Walk of Fame. I was like, she earned that. She earned it. And she paved the way because now we have more R&B vocalists that Canada has ever seen. And I commend her for that.
Exactly. That's
So
exactly it. Yes, exactly. Julie walked so that we could run. And I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. You know, it wasn't easy for her either. And I know that she'll speak to that. As a dark-skinned woman in a time where like you did not see these types of artists on stage, and Julie has walked into some really amazing rooms that probably had shut the door and probably have still shut the door to some of us, you know. So she's really done some groundbreaking things.
She really has.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things. I think like as someone who, not a pioneer in the sense of like age, but just a pioneer in the sense of like you actually contributed to building an infrastructure for us. It's difficult. It's hard. It's like, you know, it's just one of those things where you're like, I had to be one of those people to just try and do it so that the road could at least be paved for us and we could walk just that much easier. So yeah, man, shout outs to Julie Black. She's definitely a Canadian R&B soul native. When I think of Canadian R&B, I think everyone thinks of Julie Black.
Yeah, it's like that's the go-to.
Yeah.
And I mean, even though I know this is not R&B, but even Fifi Dobson, apparently she's doing music too, and I'm really excited about that too. So,
yes, Fifi.
Black women in Canadian music, just killing it. Love it.
Yeah, and diverse markets. I mean, even like Michie Mee, you know, like I did not know for a long time Michie Mee was Canadian or from Toronto. Like I just remember being a kid and like seeing her on TV, looking so dope. Like everyone knows I love like a 90s fit. And Michie embodied all of the 90s. And I was like, okay, who is that? I always thought she was a part of Salt and Pepper. Like she should have been a part of Salt and Pepper. But yeah, just a groundbreaking artists and people who are paving the way for all of us, man.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know where she is. Uh-oh.
Sure. She may still with us.
I don't know. I hope everything's okay in the messages.
She'll be back.
Yeah.
Okay, so Julie Black, you're saying that she's groundbreaking. She made history in terms of R&B in Canada. When I saw the Juno moment, I was actually very emotional because I remember seeing her like that, like the way she was dressed. I've seen her before downtown Toronto looking like that. And to know that 20 plus years later, she stayed the course and she remained true to what she loved. And, you know, I see her doing, she did like theater, I think last year or the year before. And it's like demonstrating her vocal range that, you know, yes, we've seen her collaborate with hip hop artists before, but she's an amazing vocalist. She
Yeah.
has, her voice is strong. And I think as she's grown, she's diversified into other areas with great success.
Yeah.
And it all started with, you know, singing R&B in like clubs or venues or collaborating with Cardinal Official. So it's really nice to see the progress.
Yeah. That's great. I think she shows the range. It's the range for me. Yeah. It's
Yeah. So now we're coming to a close. I wanted to talk to you both now about what you hope to see, because times are changing. You know, Advanced Black Music Collective started an initiative 2 years ago to try to break down racial barriers and get the community more integrated, which is wonderful. And we can talk a lot about what it used to be like, what happened before. I was doing some material for our Black History Month programming on Oscar Peterson. And a lot of the text that was written about his life did talk about 1940s Canada and what it was like for him trying to perform at venues across Canada. And I kind of, I was, you get shocked a little because I've worked with artists now and I hear some of the same stuff. So yes, we can talk about our past, but then now we're here, 2022. Both of you have put out projects in the last year or two. What do you want to see or hear in the future when it comes to Black music, R&B music, artistry, music creation? What would you like to see?
I would really love to just see some more support for the local Black female R&B artist. Um, I'm not saying that we don't. I'm not saying that we don't get support. I think that we do. But just kind of like you said, I feel like I don't know if it was you or if Leila had mentioned it earlier on when we first started, and just almost like kind of having a hub. We could kind of just all like work together, unite, create together. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like too sometimes it can be a bit competitive because we're all trying to like be after this like the same thing and just create our sound, but at the same time it can be a little bit competitive sometimes because we're all after the same thing, trying to going after the same sound, right? But it's like, oh, like you may have the look or you may not have the look, again, like we discussed earlier, right? But the range is there, right? So what does that matter? I would actually really love to see more um, inclusiveness when it comes to like again the Black female R&B artist, um, because yeah, that's just one of the things I would really love to see. I'm always down to see more funding too. Never gonna I'm never gonna be against that.
Yeah.
But I think those are the two things that I could say off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, a lot of people hear me say this. I think it has to do with infrastructure. I think it has to do with like I would love to see a systemic change. I could go on and on and on, but like I feel like, um, R&B has a place here. It's just we don't have an infrastructure to build it because I think with a proper infrastructure, artists would see that like it doesn't have to be competitive because there's multiple people. I think the idea that, and sometimes this is also like an American or an outsider perspective where it's like, well, we're looking for that one Canadian girl or that one Toronto person. And there's this mentality that there can only be one. Well, we've already got Drake, or we've already got, and that's perpetuated in a lot of conversations. But in actuality, there's Drake and there's Tory Lanez and there's Party Next Door and there's there's a number of different very successful people. And similarly, You know, there's Julie Black and there's, you know, Jessie Reyes, and there's a number of different people in Canada who are doing what needs to be done. But if there's an infrastructure where I think artists can visually see, and I'll say this, like artists of color, more specifically female artists of color, can visually see there is a way for us to be successful artists and stay in Toronto for me, or stay in Canada and will be supported, then I think that would help break down some of the barriers that we find in, like, you know, the support or whatnot. Because even for myself, I've been doing music for a long time here, but you know, I always tell this kind of story. I've been on TikTok for probably like less than a year. And the support that I get from TikTok, because it's built a community in the States, in the US market, and also in the UK market. But the support that I get from, you know, our neighbors in the US is so different from the support I get from here in the city. And I'm not just talking about my peers or my friends or people who are here, like, for example, you, Shanay, who's just like, I love the music. I'm just talking about on a little bit of a broader scale. Like, these are people who have never seen me live, have never really interacted with even, let's say, my project or anything like that. But they're just so open and they're so willing because there's an infrastructure there, and they're like, wow, we're actual R&B lovers. And, you know, I know where to go to get the R&B fix that I need. I know that if I'm in LA, this is where I need to be to go and hear R&B. I know that if I'm in Atlanta, this is where I need to be to go and hear R&B. I know that if I'm in Philly, this is where I need to be to get R&B. And the R&B that they like. I know that if I'm in New York, I know where to be. It's kind of confusing in Toronto, to be quite honest. Where do we go to get the R&B if somebody comes here? I couldn't tell you. And, you know, a lot of different things, infrastructure. I think that, you know, as Black people, we need to start trying to own venues so that we don't continuously get kicked out of venues or be, you know, sidebarred by whatever indie rock band is going to be coming, and they would prefer to go with that, and a number of different things. You know, it has to do with infrastructure. I love that you brought up advance, because hoping that, you know, with some backing and support, that becomes something really important in Canada overall for Black artists. You know, I feel like I would love to break down some of the ideas around R&B and who they feel like should be representing R&B, for lack of better term. Like, you know, like R&B can look many different ways. It's not to say that it's only a Black genre, but also to just know very clearly that, like, this is what if we're considering R&B, like, what is it? What are we considering? What are we, you know, and there's also R&B alternative, which is also its own thing as well. So if we are pushing these people and we're like, well, this is Canadian R&B, hopefully it's R&B and not pop masked as R&B, or, you know,
Thank you.
something else masked as R&B. As someone who does R&B, I'm kind of always very side-eyeing, like, well, this is not R&B. But that's a whole other conversation. But just, I think it really has to start with, like, infrastructure. I think it starts with us as artists. I think it starts with all of our amazing bodies, like, you know, S.A.C. That's just like, you know, I see the initiative where it's like, oh, we want to get out here, we want to talk to artists, we want to make a name, we want to be able to support these people and what they're doing. And that's where it's going to start. It's a lot of legwork, but it starts here. It starts with us. It starts with like having these kind of conversations to hopefully change the infrastructure of Canadian music, at least R&B and Canadian music.
Yeah, I agree. Wow, so many points were made, and I'm just kind of upset that I'm blanking on it. So much to add to that, but man, thank you, Leila. I think that really summed it up. I totally agree. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm overjoyed that both of you agreed to do this, because, like, I just feel something like a platform to be able to talk about these things, for everyone to have a different perspective or to just understand how it works. It starts with talking about it. So Thank you so much. So we have 2 more panels to go. We have more conversation, more collaboration, more creativity.
Yes.
And I wish you both very well on the next journey of your careers. I want you to tell everybody where we can find you online, websites, anything, just shout it out.
All right, go ahead, Nicole, you're up.
It's just Nicole.Chambers on Instagram, and then Nicole Chambers for like Spotify and like any other like streaming platform that you use.
Okay, wonderful.
Yep. And for me, similarly, it's Leila Day. Leila Day spelled Leila-Dey, not D-A-Y like the day, but D-E-Y. On all platforms, you can also go to leiladay.com. You can Google Leila Day, a number of things will come up, and hopefully they will all lead you back to me.
Wonderful. Thank you, ladies. We
Thank
hope
you.
to be in touch for the future. Good luck for your careers. See you soon.
Thank you.
you.